Ask most Texans what's dangerous about their state, and they'll bring up the heat, the traffic, maybe a wasp nest under the eaves. Almost nobody mentions what's actually living in the water behind their house, or moving along the fence line an hour before sunrise. It's not that the animals are hard to find, it's that this is a state built almost entirely on ignoring what's underfoot, a culture of not looking twice at the stock tank, the storm drain, the tall grass past the mailbox, because looking too closely would mean admitting how much shares the ground with you. Every single animal on this list is real, confirmed, and living in numbers most residents would be stunned to hear out loud. So today, we're ranking 11 of them, not by which one could kill you fastest, but by how thoroughly the people living closest to it have convinced themselves it isn't really there. Quick ask before we start. If this kind of "it was here the whole time" content is your thing, tap subscribe now. Takes 2 seconds, costs nothing, and keeps you from missing the next one. Okay, let's get into it. Number 11. The Black Widow. We start small, in the one place almost every Texan has reached without looking first. The garage shelf, the stacked firewood, the underside of the patio furniture. Both the southern and western black widow are common across the state, and her venom, drop for drop, is one of the most potent of any spider in North America. She isn't aggressive, she'd rather retreat into her web than bite. But she builds in exactly the clutter humans create and rarely clean out, which means the danger isn't rarity, it's proximity. Number 10. The Bobcat. The bobcat lives in every one of Texas's 254 counties. Piney woods, desert scrub, the green belt behind a suburban cul-de-sac, and almost nobody ever actually sees one. That's not luck, it's design. An adult weighs 15 to 35 pounds, hunts the exact seam where a backyard fence ends and brush begins, and moves at the 2 times of day people are least likely to be watching. When someone does catch a glimpse, they usually assume it was somebody's escaped house cat, because the real explanation, a wild predator working a hunting route along their fence line, doesn't fit the story they tell themselves about where they live. Number 9. The Alligator Snapping Turtle. Down in the slow rivers and oxbow lakes of East Texas lives one of the largest freshwater turtles on the continent, and most people waiting a fishing hole have no idea it's there at all. An adult alligator snapping turtle can weigh well over 150 pounds, with a beak-like jaw strong enough to sever a finger in an instant. It doesn't chase, it sits motionless on the river bottom, mouth open, using a small worm-shaped lure on its tongue to draw fish straight to it. Patience as a hunting strategy. In water, families swim in every summer without a second thought. Number 8. The Coyote. If the bobcat is a ghost, the coyote is a population that keeps quietly expanding into the middle of the cities. It's confirmed in all 254 counties, denning inside city limits, crossing parking lots after dark, working the greenbelts of Austin and the drainage corridors of Houston. An adult runs 20 to 35 pounds and will take a small, unattended pet without hesitation. When someone spots one trotting across a lit parking lot at night, the mind almost always reaches for stray dog, because that's the only file most people keep for something moving through a city on 4 legs after dark. Number 7. The Copperhead. Now we move from animals people mistake for something else to the one they simply step over. The copperhead causes more venomous bites in Texas than any other snake, and almost none are fatal, which is exactly why nobody bothers watching for it. Its coppery, hourglass-marked body disappears into dry leaves so completely that people stand a foot away and see only ground. It won't rattle, it won't flee. It lies still in East Texas leaf litter and suburban flower beds alike, trusting the one thing that's kept it alive for millions of years, that you won't notice. Number 6. The Africanized Honeybee. We're right at the halfway point of this list, and if you're still here, you're clearly someone who actually wants to know what's really out there. So if you haven't hit subscribe yet, now's the moment. The so-called killer bee has been established in Texas since 1990, when the first colony crossed into Hidalgo County from Mexico. To the eye, it's indistinguishable from an ordinary honeybee. The difference is entirely in temperament. An Africanized colony defends its nest with far greater intensity, sends out 10 times the number of defenders, and will pursue a perceived threat for a quarter mile without backing down. It's been responsible for human and livestock deaths in the state, almost always someone mowing near a hidden hive or disturbing a wall cavity where a colony had quietly moved in. And if a bee unsettled you, buckle in, because everything from here forward gets bigger, older, and far less willing to back down. One of the next 5 is a predator the state itself refuses to officially manage. Another one swims up rivers 100 miles from the ocean. And the very last animal on this list is one you've probably driven past 100 times without ever knowing it was watching you back. Let's keep going. Number 5. The Western Diamondback Rattlesnake. This is the snake almost every Texan can picture, and almost none of them expect to actually encounter. The Western Diamondback causes more serious bites and more fatalities than any other snake species in the state, and its range covers nearly all of it. Hill country, brush country, the edges of West Texas towns. A large adult commonly runs 3 to 4 feet, with some specimens topping 6, and it will hold its ground rather than flee. It has a warning built into its body, that unmistakable rattle, but it doesn't always choose to use it. It's often simply coiled in the shade beside the trail you've walked 100 times, doing the one thing it's built to do: wait. Number 4. The feral hog. Texas is home to an estimated 2.5 to 3 million feral hogs, roughly half of every wild hog in the entire country, occupying every county but one. A mature boar can push past 200 pounds, armored in thick cartilage, tusked, and fast, and unlike most large animals, it will stand its ground and charge rather than run. They move in family groups called sounders, and the damage they do to crops, land, and property is estimated at more than $500 million a year statewide. Most residents treat them the way they treat traffic, an inconvenience, somebody else's fence problem, without ever picturing the actual number moving through the dark at the edge of their own property. Number 3. The mountain lion. This is the true apex predator of the Texas wild, and it's so rarely seen that its rarity has hardened into a myth that it simply isn't here anymore. It is. Thousands of mountain lions move through the state right now, concentrated in the Trans-Pecos and Big Bend region, with scattered populations reaching into the hill country and South Texas brush. A large male can weigh over 150 pounds and range across hundreds of square miles. And here's what sets Texas apart from every other state with a resident mountain lion population. For decades, it was the only one that didn't manage or even require reporting of the species at all, treating it as a non-game animal that could be taken without season or limit. Only recently has the state moved to formally study and track its own population of an animal it had quietly stopped counting. Number 2. The bull shark. Everyone accepts sharks live off the Texas coast. That's the deal you make with the Gulf. What almost nobody lets themselves think about is that one particular species doesn't stay there. The bull shark can regulate the salt balance in its body well enough to swim freely between saltwater and freshwater, and it has been documented dozens of miles up Texas rivers, far from any beach. Females can reach 11 feet and several hundred pounds, and the brackish estuaries where major rivers meet the coast have become nurseries for growing numbers of young sharks as Gulf waters warm. Families floating a slow tidal river on inner tubes are, more often than they realize, sharing that water with an animal perfectly built for exactly that environment. Number 1. The American alligator. And so we land on the animal Texas has most perfected the art of not seeing. An estimated 400,000 to 500,000 alligators live across roughly 120 counties, from the marshes near the Louisiana border to waterways stretching toward the Rio Grande. Think about what that number actually means. The retention pond behind the office park, the water hazard on the golf course, the slow bayou behind the subdivision. Nearly all of it is alligator habitat. A large male can exceed 10 feet, and the biggest ever recorded in the state topped 14. It is an ambush predator of extraordinary patience, motionless at the waterline for hours, capable of closing the distance in a fraction of a second. People jog past these ponds the way city commuters step over a subway grate, aware, technically, but functionally indifferent. And wildlife officials are clear that the most dangerous alligators aren't the wild ones. They're the ones people have fed, one tossed scrap at a time, until the animal loses its natural wariness of humans entirely. So here's what this list is really about. Not fear. Fear burns off by morning. It's about the quiet agreement that lets a state build its subdivisions, boat ramps, and backyard decks directly over a food chain that never actually left, and remains completely indifferent to the people moving through it. The bobcat is still on the fence line at first light. The bull shark is still riding the tide upriver. And somewhere past a ranch road you've driven 100 times, a mountain lion the state barely bothered counting is moving through the dark, alive in a place most people decided was a legend. The water looks the same whether or not you're looking at it. It always has. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. And if you haven't yet, subscribe for the next one.